So let's discuss the Arizona Cardinals, because coming into this season, they decide to make some big moves. Paying Kyler Murray after he basically forced their hand, deciding to extend head coach Cliff Kingsbury after his third season here in Arizona. And right now, the Cardinals are sitting at a unfortunate position, currently at 4-8. Their offense has not performed as well as it did last year. Kyler Murray has not performed as well as he did last year, which has led to this team in general to struggle. You also add in the fact that this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. That clearly doesn't help. And so right now, lots of different people are asking, what should the Cardinals do? What's the solution here? Many have suggested letting Cliff Kingsbury go, which may be a little harder just because he just got, that long-term extension. Of course, they could still decide to move on. But there are many, I think, different issues here when you look at the Arizona Cardinals. And one underrated issue that I think I honestly, for myself, overlooked when it came to this Cardinals team was the loss of Christian Kirk, because during his time here in Arizona, I feel like he was a little bit overlooked, at least from the general NFL, because I myself am not a Cardinals fan, but I follow, lots of teams in the NFL. And Christian Kirk always seemed like a solid player, but he didn't really feel like that elite number one guy. But he goes to the Jaguars and they decide to pay a ton of money to him. I was a little bit confused. I was like, is he really worth that kind of money? But then you look at this Cardinals team. They've declined with him gone. You look at the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence has increased his play with Christian Kirk there. And when you look at Christian Kirk here in Arizona, he was, mainly a slot receiver, played about 70% of his snaps from the slot. You take that slot weapon in Christian Kirk away from Kyler Murray, and you add in basically Rondell Moore and Greg Dortch, who Rondell Moore grades as the 80th best wide receiver right now. And then you have Greg Dortch, who grades as the 85th wide receiver. So without Christian Kirk in the slot, Kyler Murray has taken a big hit. You could say it's partly due to Christian Kirk. Maybe it's, Kyler Murray as well playing worse. But obviously, when you lose a weapon that you have relied on for many years, obviously things are going to change a lot. The Cardinals, of course, did decide to bring in Marquise Brown, but when you look at him and DeAndre Hopkins, with Hopkins missing the first 6 games, with Brown missing the past few games because of injuries, they've only had one game together during this time here in Arizona. And so I think that when you look at the loss of Christian Kirk, who has played really well in Jacksonville, I think that is an underrated loss that has really affected Kyler Murray's play. And if you look right now at Kyler Murray, he is playing similarly to how he did his rookie season. About the same passer rating right now as in his rookie season so far this year. 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 87 passer rating. You look at last year for Kyler, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 100.6 passer rating. So Kyler Murray, after just getting his massive contract, has declined when it comes to his performance so far this season. So to pay a guy as much as you pay him, basically as one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL, he has not played up to that expectation. And I think that part of that does fall on the head coach, because it is up to the head coach to get the most out of your team, no matter if your team changes, with losing Christian Kirk, with a little bit of a difference on this offense. Obviously, every team is consistently having to try to adapt as they lose players, as players get traded to different teams, as guys retire, all these different kinds of things. And Cliff Kingsbury just hasn't been able to get the most out of this offense. And it's sort of been a consistent theme here for the Cardinals, especially over the second part of many of Cliff Kingsbury's seasons here. He started pretty good and then declined. It also happened in college. But let's look at Cliff Kingsbury and his records here. 2019, 5-10, finishes 2-7 the final 9 games. Not amazing, but it's his first year. 2020, finishes 8-8, so a little bit of an increase in performance from the team, but still, you look at that year, his final 7 games, he goes 2-5. So it seems like there's a pattern playing out there. 2021 starts 10-2. And then after starting 10-2, looking as one of the best teams in the NFL, it seemed like, okay, the Cardinals have become one of the premier teams. They finished this season 11-6 and then lose in the playoffs. And then you look at this year, it's just been a huge dip, sitting at 4-8, and they haven't won consecutive games this season. And this past game against the Chargers, it was very close. They played well a majority of the game. Unfortunately, in the fourth quarter, they had multiple 3-and-outs when they could have secured the win, but they weren't able to. So I do think when you look at Cliff Kingsbury, his time here, there has been that consistent issue of not quite finishing off games, finishing off seasons. when they really were in control, especially in 2021. And if you look around the NFL, teams are pretty quick to move on from coaches who do not get the team where they need to go. And it looks like that could be happening here in Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury seemingly on the hot seat, because with the weapons they have there, with the talent they have in Kyler Murray, after just paying him a ton of money, you'd expect a lot more from this team. And going forward, there could be a change there. You know, there's some rumors of Sean Payton, because he could potentially be available for a head coaching job next year. And I think when you look at a player like a Kyler Murray, he could need someone with a little more experience, a veteran coach who I think may have a little more authority than a young coach in Cliff Kingsbury, because at times it has looked like there has been tension between both Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, which was reported in the past couple of weeks from Ian Rappaport. And so obviously they haven't always seemingly looked eye to eye, and I think moving on from Cliff Kingsbury could be a potential option to sort of salvage the team they have here in Arizona. Feel free to comment your thoughts on this situation down below. Subscribe if you want to see more NFL content. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.